Welcome to the Salish Sea Fellowship Sunday afternoon service. Our speaker today is Joseph Bednarik. The title of his sermon is Tasting Salt, Inspiring a New Communion. We hope you enjoy this recording of our service, and we hope to see you in person some Sunday afternoon. Thanks for listening.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brian Rogers, member of the board, with today's announcements. Our offering today will be taken for the Jefferson County Food Bank Association. Kendra will tell you a little bit more about them later. But during the offering, if you put money in the collection plate that's intended for the fellowship, please make sure your check is labeled as such, or put cash in an envelope with your name and the word pledge, so it gets credited to the pledge. Next Sunday is game day, back by popular demand, 2 o'clock, right here. No, the message says contact Karen Wamstad for more information, but she's in Japan, which makes it a little hard to do so. But just send a note to Salish Fellowship if you want more information about it. The Breakfast Club that's hosted by Sarah and Karen continues every Wednesday morning at 9:30 at Bayview Restaurant. Everyone welcome. The ALP class from Joni Murphy and Paul Hinton, a symposium on David Brooks' How to Know a Person, continues on Wednesdays on May 21st and 28th. There's a jar for CUMC donations located on the same table as our treats. Please make any donations by the end of the coffee hour. The membership book is here, so if you're a member and haven't yet signed it, you're welcome to do so after the service. It's all the way in the back by the name board. And we're quite pleased to welcome new members, Dick and Esther Conway and Susan Kriegel. And finally, after the service, about 15 minutes after the service, there'll be a discussion group in the music room down at the end of the hall. We can talk more about salt with Joseph.
Good afternoon. And welcome to the Salish Sea Fellowship. Thank you, Akui, for your prelude today. We are a religious community with open hearts and open minds. We embrace the traditional principles of Unitarianism and Universalism. My name is Kendra Golden, and I am the pulpit assistant today. Our speaker is Joseph Bednarik, well known to most of you. Joseph is recently retired as co-publisher at Copper Canyon, and he speaks regularly at UU congregations in the area, including ours. And he is the author of Invited to Speak, a compilation of some of his Sunday morning stories and meditations, copies of which, I believe,
I've got a couple copies with me.
are available upon request. Welcome, Joseph. If you have not done so already, please silence your cell phones so as not to disturb our time together. And at this time, I'm going to invite Dan forward because I'm asking if there is anyone visiting us for the first time. And if you would stand or raise your hand so we know who you are, Dan will bring the microphone to you so that you can briefly introduce yourself. Do we have such a person?
Welcome.
Thank you. Richard Meadows. I'm from Port Townsend, and very pleased to be here.
I'm Bob Landry from Port Townsend, and also very happy to be here.
Thank you for coming. Welcome. Anyone else?
Welcome to you all. And here's the good news. There are refreshments after the service, so you will be able to be back there, have some goodies, and we have a chance to get to know you. By ringing these chimes, you are invited to settle in and quiet our minds. We will begin our sacred time together. And we're going to light the chalice with these words, again with Dan's help. We light this chalice with all our soul's longing to be who we are, to be who we will become, to be ourselves. Pat and Doug and company. Our offering today is for the benefit of the Jefferson County Food Bank, and I want to share 3 numbers that I think summarize the work of the food bank. The first is 450. That's the number of volunteers. And I've been one of those volunteers since 2018. I hand out sweets at the bakery table. Other volunteers give out healthy produce, canned goods, meat, and pet food. Some volunteers pick up food from our grocery stores, bakeries in town, Costco. Others manage the check-in process, clean up after, order food online. It is enormously gratifying to see these amazing volunteers in action, week in and week out. The food bank could not exist without them. The next number is 450. That is the number of families served each week. Some are single people living pretty rough. Some are families with 4 kids. Some have disabilities. Some are retired seniors. Each week, there are regulars and always some new folks. All are welcome. They are a great bunch of folks. Anyone who would like a tour can come by any Wednesday, see the food bank in operation, and take home a sweet. How does the food bank manage financially? That brings me to the 3rd number. We receive food from Food Lifeline, Northwest Harvest, the U.S. government, and our local stores and farmers. But some of these programs are being hit by cuts at the same time that cuts to SNAP, Medicaid, and other cuts may be affecting our clients' wallets. Which brings me to my last number, $11,000. It refers to a federal farm-to-food bank program that last year enabled our food bank to pay our local farmers to deliver produce to our food bank, a real win-win for all. That program has been eliminated, and so our food bank is looking for donations that will help us continue that program and find other sources of food for our most vulnerable. Thank you so much for your support.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? No. We have no's and we have yeses, so we're going to make a little adjustment here. How about now? Can everybody hear me okay? Now I've got thumbs up. Excellent. So if you're following along at home on your order of service, we've changed the order a little bit, putting the reading here, and also have changed the reading. Pablo Neruda's Ode to Salt, part of that will be within the sermon proper, and it felt more appropriate to bring out this poem by Denis Levertov called The Depths, since we're talking about salt. When the white fog burns off, the abyss of everlasting light is revealed. The last cobwebs of fog and the black fir trees are flakes of white ash in the world's hearth. Cold of the sea is counterpart to this great fire. Plunging out of the burning cold of ocean, we enter an ocean of intense noon. Sacred salt sparkles on our bodies. After mist has wrapped us again in fine wool, may the taste of salt recall to us the great depths about us. Akue, you're bringing Bach, you're bringing Beethoven. I mean, goodness gracious, this is fantastic.
So it's not salt.
Oh, fantastic. And before we begin, I have been asked to do a content warning on this sermon. I was told that this is a room full of very devout humanists. This sermon will lead directly into your active participation in a ritual. Get ready. It's coming. It's coming. So, salt is everywhere throughout the world. It's used in every cuisine to enhance every flavor. Salt is essential to human health. It's mined from mountains, gathered in deserts, and evaporated from the sea. Human life would be essentially impossible without salt. And during his lifetime, the great poet Pablo Neruda wrote hundreds and hundreds of odes to ordinary things of this world. And his ode to salt concludes with these lines: dust of water, the sun receives through you a kiss from the marine night. Taste melds your oceanity into each rich morsel, and thus the least wave of the salt shaker teaches us not merely domestic purity, but also the essential flavor of the infinite. I love that line. The essential flavor of the infinite, especially when recalling the Sermon on the Mount, when the great teacher, Jesus of Nazareth, used salt as a teaching metaphor and said to those within earshot, quote, "You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt," this is a modern translation, "but if the salt loses its zing, how will it be made salty? It then has no further use than to be thrown out and stomped upon." Zing. What fun to imagine Jesus saying zing in Aramaic. And just for fun, I checked several English translations of the Bible to see what other words were used in other translations for zing. And I found savor, flavor, saltiness, and taste were some very common words used in that in that passage. So you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its zing, savor, flavor, taste, saltiness, how will it be made salty? It's an excellent question. And so let's begin. Back in the day, when I was learning the periodical table or the periodic table of the elements, I would put, I'm sorry, I think I missed a page here. That's the thing, right? That's very salty. No, I did it. So I'm learning, let me get back together. Wait, let me. Hey, how's it going, everybody? So I'm learning the periodic table. Someone recently also told me it's not hymnal, Joseph, it's hymnal. So it's not periodical table, it's periodic table. And all those letter symbols like Na for sodium, Cl for chloride, and when you put those two elements together, you get NaCl, elemental, right? And it stood to reason, because elements are elements are elements, that NaCl was NaCl the world over. Sodium and chloride, elemental. So, God, I'm having a really hard time today. Let me take a sip of water. Have you ever been there? It's like, what is going on? Kendra just said I was there 5 minutes ago. So, this is a really, I'm sorry, I'm off kilter here. I'm tasting salt. Okay, sodium and chloride, it's elemental. When it rains, it pours. You put it in a salt shaker, you sprinkle it as needed, you toss some over your left shoulder, and that's pretty much where I left salt in my brain, where I parked the idea until after college, when I was working as a stocker at a very progressive and conscious and attuned natural food store, where it seemed like every food decision that every customer was informed by politics or environmental concerns or spiritual practices or health mania, fad diets, et cetera, some kind of maniacal pursuit of food purity. Because it was Eugene, marijuana was always in season, the munchies were always on everyone's mind. Now, competition on the retail shelves were fierce, and sometimes the food packaging got a little goofy. I still remember this starburst graphic on a bag of tortilla chips that announced proudly that these chips were ergonomically designed. True that. In order to provide an effective grip while dipping. So there I was, a stocker at a natural food store, fresh with a philosophy degree from a nice college, some basic knowledge about the periodic table. Who knew exactly what sodium chloride was? Cheap as dirt. 99% of the kitchens on the planet Earth had it. And then one of the most profound moments in my life happened as a result of me having to stock a new product on the shelves. It was Norwegian sea salt in 1 pound sacks that cost $10. My inner Marxist and my inner Thoreau and my inner American savvy shopper, they all kind of swirled together and went berserk. Really? $10 for a pound of salt when I could buy a pound for 29 cents at insert quote, a regular store that did not cater to this bourgeoisie craziness? So I smelled a rat, and I could not believe it. I could not believe that anyone would pay that kind of money for salt. I became so insufferable in my umbrage and so annoying in my dismissive teasing that I finally got the cook from the deli to call me in. "Have you actually tasted this salt?" she said. Like, no, I haven't tasted it because I don't need to taste it because I know what knackle tastes like. Thank you very much. "Lick your finger," she told me. She held out a bowl with a white substance. "Come taste the fjords," she said. So the cook in the deli, she was no dummy. She used Norwegian sea salt in all of her special recipes. She stood and she watched as I licked my finger, touched the salt, and touched my tongue. And the expressions on my face, like, shape-shifted from startled to befuddled to thoughtful to delighted in these nanoseconds. Zing! So I can say without a doubt that that moment in the natural food store was the first time that I truly tasted salt. And it was incredible. Crystals were minute and moist. They dissolved like a vapor. The salt flavor just burst onto my tongue. It was the saltiest, most delicious salt that I had ever encountered. I mean, it was like meta salt. It was the Mona Lisa of salt. If Plato were to taste it, he would call it the form of salt. And I tell you this, inner Marxist be damned, I took out a $10 bill from my wallet, brought a sack home, told all my housemates, "You have got to taste this salt." I became a Norwegian salt evangelist. So thank you, Norwegian sea salt, for making my life richer and deeper and tastier. Thank you, Norwegian sea salt, for moving me beyond the blunt elemental formula of sodium chloride to a deeper appreciation of the bright and subtle tastes of this earth. And so it is, on my most recent count, in my home kitchen at this very moment, I have salt in glass containers with labels that read black lava, cypress flake, Kalahari Desert, pink Himalayan, Atlantic Sea, Dead Sea, Fleur de Sel, New Zealand flake. They all taste different. They're delicious, and they're deliciously different. And there are thousands of more that I have yet to taste. And just so we don't get holier than thou, in my spice rack there is also an artificially flavored seasoning called bacon salt, with perhaps the most zealous tagline ever created, quote, "Everything should taste like bacon." So in contrast to simple NaCl, you actually need a PhD in chemistry to fully understand and comprehend the ingredient list on bacon salt. But let's just say for the record, sometimes autolyzed yeast extract and disodium guanylate are just what the doctor ordered. Bacon salt. So doctor's orders aside, my consciousness about salt has risen over the years, and I take special delight, actually, in tasting the salts of my own creation. And that's blood and sweat and tears. These are all of our precious salts within us. And recently I reread for the zillionth time one of my favorite pieces of literature, a very long poem by a great American poet named Richard Jones. This poem touches me really deeply. It's called The Novel. And reading the poem, like I always do, like I will probably do in 2 minutes, tears rose. They slip down my cheeks to my lips. I touch them, lick them, tasting my own sea, my own inner sea. Now the poem begins with these lines. For 2 days I've been crying, from Paris to Rome, from Rome to Palermo, weeping and sobbing here on the train over a 19th century novel. And the poem goes on for 10 pages describing the train ride, the Italian passengers sharing his train car, a strange story that he tells them. And what gets me every time is that the poem ends with this young fisherman standing in the hallway of the train. He's at night. He's thinking about what he will tell his friends about this journey. And here are the final lines. And I will tell them, when the entire train was dreaming, except for the American, hidden behind his book and flashlight, I saw an old man in the next compartment, sitting across from his daughter, admiring her as she slept, tenderly, secretly watching her, biting his knuckle now and then. So astonished he was by her beauty. If ever I need to taste my tears, I open that poem by Richard Jones as the father of daughters. I get it. I'm completely there, biting my knuckle, astonished by beauty, inside the train car of my time here on earth, hurtling through darkness, feeling great love. And my guess is that we have all been there sometime or another, inside our time. We are inside our time, filled with tenderness, being completely present, astonished by beauty, and feeling love deeply. Now I hold that these are some of the exquisite flavors of being a human being. Each and all can bring tears that reach our lips, and when we lick those tears, we taste deeply of our life, and we taste the zing of being alive. Speaking of zing, I am also the caretaker of a salt that can be fairly described, objectively described, as miraculous. My wife, Liesl, was the development director for the Port Townsend Marine Science Center, and every year she organized the big fancy fundraising auction. Many of you probably attended that auction. Now, years ago, one of the silent auction items was donated salt, deep seawater salt, gathered from a place on the globe called the Samoa Trench. And by deep seawater, I mean 5,100 meters, which translates as over 3 miles deep. And while the auction had all the classic items, special trips, fancy wines, fine art, Liesl thought that this deep seawater salt in a small glass jar with a cork and a label with the exact coordinates where it was collected in the ocean was the coolest item of the entire auction. She was very happy for the couple who won the salt, and she was even more delighted because rather than $10 for a bag of Norwegian sea salt, this couple gave $100 to the Marine Science Center to get this salt. Liesl was effusive. She was very, very happy for the couple. And at the end of the night, to show their gratitude for Liesl's good work with raising resources for an organization that they loved, the couple gifted the salt to Liesl, who then brought it home to show me. My eyes immediately went wide, and the first words out of my mouth were, "That salt is a sermon." And so here we are. We here in this sanctuary are in the presence of something quite wondrous, some of the world's deepest and rarest salt. And so I needed to find out more about this salt, so I met with the woman who created it and I asked for the story. She had worked for several years on a research vessel owned and operated by the University of Washington. And she says, and she makes a good point of it, she was a grunt. She wasn't a scientist. She would run the equipment and she would gather water samples at various depths, and she noticed that the scientists would only use a small portion of the samples, and they would discard the rest of the deep water overboard. And then she got this genius idea of saving the excess water to make salt. And through trial and error, collaboration with the steward who quote-unquote got it, they would collect deep water samples in 3-gallon pot and boil it until there was about a 1-inch thick slurry. Then they would transfer the slurry onto baking sheets, bake on a very, very, very low temperature, and after sufficient time, salt. The scientists on board, they first scoffed at this idea because NaCl is NaCl is NaCl, and you could take water from anywhere in the sea and make sea salt. No. The cook and the grunt knew better. The deep seawater salt was, as she said, from extraordinarily old water with very high salinity, far beyond the reach of sunlight. This water was from one of the deepest and darkest places on the planet, and its salt tastes so bright on the tongue. So she and the cook got to the point in their salt making that they would only use water from samples if it was at least a mile deep. In short, she became a deep water connoisseur, a salt-making savant. And she made salt from deep water all over the Pacific, and she made them as gifts. She provided deep water salt to graduate students and scientists who worked on the ship. These are rare gifts. She made the point, too, when talking with me, that one of the reasons the salt is so rare is that it costs $30,000 a day to operate the research vessel. And so, in short, true this, the salt in this room is essentially priceless. It is sacred. You cannot buy it anywhere if you wanted to. This salt only exists through layers of gifting. The gift of science and engineering to develop equipment that can descend 3 miles deep into the ocean. The gift of creative genius to realize that quote-unquote excess sample water can be transformed into rare salt. The gift of generosity twice over. First, donate the rare salt to a local nonprofit dedicated to keeping the Salish Sea healthy. The second gift of generosity when the donors who acquired the rare salt presented it to someone who saw the salt for what it was. Miraculous. And the most beautiful gift of all, the gift of our attention to our senses so that we can taste and appreciate the many gifts that brought us to this moment of tasting the essential flavor of the infinite, to call back to Pablo Neruda. Now, in his book, Salted, a manifesto of the world's most essential mineral, Mark Bitterman writes, quote, "We eat lots of things, animals, plants, fungi, bacteria. Salt is the only mineral we eat. It is the only universal ingredient, and it's also the most potent one." Sidebar. For that comment, for those of you who do not believe that salt is the only mineral we eat, I'll be in the back corner over there. You can form a line down the wall and talk to me about that. I've talked here enough. As universalists, we should listen close to that statement, and I propose that we henceforth consider salt a sacred mineral of our religion. Now, Bitterman continues, "Yet salt in its own right can be as distinctive as any plant or animal. more so in fact. There is no variety of plant or breed of animal that has been cultivated as food for as long, in as many places and in as many ways as salt. It is not only the universal food, it is the most varied, close quote. Again, that word universal, this time coupled with the phrase most varied. Now, what's stunning metaphorical resonance with our values of seeing wisdom within the varied religious traditions. And so finally, honoring salt is not only important for understanding the bounty of nature, it is vital to the understanding of cooking and eating. That last line by Bitterman. And as the great poet, nature lover, and food sage Jim Harrison says, eat or die. So knowing something vital about eating is to know something vital about living. So, as we prepare to engage our taste with a salt communion, keep this in mind. On this earth, salt is the only universal ingredient. On this earth, salt comes from the deepest oceans, the hottest deserts, and the highest mountains. On this earth, salt is in our blood and our sweat and our tears. And when we are attentive to the zing of salt, we taste into our life the essential flavor of the infinite. So, on this little altar are 3 salts from 3 radically different areas on the earth. Deep sea salt from the Samoa Trench that we just talked about. There's white desert salt from the Kalahari. And there's pink mountain salt from the Himalayas. Now, in the presence of these salts, within the sacred time of our worship, we're going to train our communal attention on the deepest sea salt. So while all 3 are up here, we'll dispense the sea salt. So the ritual that we will partake in now is oceanic in its simplicity. You're invited to come forward. I will give you a few crystals of this incredibly rare and precious salt into the palm of your hand. I ask that you just hold that until everyone has their salt. And then when we return, when we've all participated, we all have the salt. We'll each and all lick our palm at the same time, so we can taste. I heard that. This is going to be fun. Or you can pop it in your mouth if you want. Anyway, so I'll come down, and why don't we start with the back row for those who want to come forward from the back row on this side. Do you think we can do both sides? Yeah, we can do both sides. And then we'll just make this happen. And I'm just going to give you a little time to wean. Itsy bitsy. That's the Norwegian sea salt, right?
Which kind of salt is this now?
No, this
This is
is the deep
So the question on the floor is, what kind of salt is this? This is actually salt that is from 3 miles deep. This is not the Norwegian sea salt. This is from the Samoa Trench. So this is truly salt that you cannot get anywhere. And so, how shall we begin this? On the count of 3, I will say 1, 2, 3, zing. And on zing, let's all taste our salt together, shall we? 1, 2, 3, zing. There's no other word to say than amen. Wow, I'm very salty. So up here also, if you wanted to taste the Kalahari salt or the Himalayan salt, you're welcome to do so. Thank you very much. We're going to close out with the hymn, Just as Long as I Have Breath.
Let's repeat our closing words together. You will find the words in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the loving joy of being freely together. We carry that joy until we meet again.